Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two of Waffles and Whiskey Wednesdays. So we will once again be reading from Halfway Witchy, Halfway Dead, Book One. This evening, we're going to read from pages 8 to 18 specifically. Get a chance to meet a couple of the more important people, Gus and Tammy Sincotti, and also going to get a chance to get a little of the flavor of Halfway. And then afterwards, I already have one fantastic question, which was submitted to me. So if you're going to submit questions, go ahead, subscribe if you can. And under each video, just drop your questions under there. And then what we'll do is we'll roll them up and answer next week and go from there. So I'm going to read for a little bit and then answer a couple questions and we'll go from there. All right. So picking back up when Carly gets back to her house after killing the Wendigo. My house is neat and compact. I'm small, my yard is medium, and my cat is huge. Aside from that rogue feline, my home fits me. I cook at the best diner in town, which also happens to be the only real diner in town. You can eat elsewhere, but our grill is 50 years old, and everything on it just tastes better. We get some tourist business, but for the most part, we serve locals who have more or less grown up eating at the Hawthorne Diner. We don't even have a sign anymore, and no one actually calls us the Hawthorne. We're just the diner to everyone who lives in town, and it's been that way since before I was born. My town is snugged tightly against the eastern shore of our lake and namesake, Halfway, which is, as you might have surmised, exactly halfway in the middle of something. In our case, Halfway is the middle point of the Fulton chain of lakes, which run up through the Adirondack Mountains, starting north of Utica, New York, and ending near the Canadian border. Each and every lake in the chain is beautiful, but naturally, I think ours is the best. We're a tourist destination, pit stop for travelers, and a repository of more things magical than I care to think about. Not everything as magical as bad. Take me, for example. I prefer to think of myself as inherently good, although I do unsavory tasks related to critters that are both vile and dangerous. Other times, I try to fix things with the gentle witchcraft that my family has curated over centuries. It's ultimately my decision how to apply this art to the world around me. I look at myself as a steward of something that's both older and more important than I am. Someday, I hope to pass it on just as my grandmother did to me. But for now, I treat my magic like a new pair of shoes. Someday we're going to love each other. But for now, we're just trying to fit together comfortably. I lean my bike against the porch rail, noting that next spring might be a good time to consider repainting the noble wood. I take care of my things because they return the favor. This attitude extends even to something as mundane as a porch. If you've ever fallen off a rotted stoop, you'll understand. If not, you'll have to accept the fact that proper paint is a necessity in order to keep a fresh domicile, and we'll leave it at that. My hand twitched as I turned the black iron knob on the front door. With a deep inhalation, I girded myself for battle and stepped into the foyer, which is actually just a small alcove that leads directly to the stairwell. You have the option of veering left to the living room, but only if you're prepared for an inscrutable glare from my familiar. There, atop the ancient walnut mantel, sat 25 pounds of Maine Coon cat named Gus. He'd clearly just woken, as his long tabby coat was mussed to a degree I knew he found unacceptable. That meant a minimum of 30 minutes grooming in order to restore his pre-nap splendor. This would doubtless be achieved while he occupied my lap or lazed alongside my leg. Due to my stature, Gus, when fully stretched, was slightly longer than me from hip to foot, a fact that did not escape his penetrating bronze stare. That signature gaze of disdain and bemusement greeted me as I walked in front of him and paused. His nose and whiskers began twitching in disapproval, and he favored me with a long feline smirk before dismissing me with the flick of one ear. The dais of judgment concluded, and I began to strip prematurely, wondering if any amount of bleach would get the stink of Wendigo out of my clothes. I held my shirt out at arm's length, eliciting a mournful meow from Gus, whose opinion of Wendigo stench was on par with the men I rarely found time to date. I hate to say it, but I agree. I said over my shoulder while moving unerringly to the shower. Whatever I was doing for the rest of the day, it involved being clean. I didn't need a smarmy imitation lynx to tell me that. I was opening a can of tuna for Gus when there were two knocks at the door, a pause, and then one hard boom. Ah, Tammy's here, I informed Gus as I put his plate on the floor. He ignored me, but looked pointedly at the noise that delayed his dinner by 5 seconds. I don't dare roll my eyes in front of him, so I opened the door while mentally girding my loins for the onslaught of Tammy Sincotti. She stood there, package in hand, smiling with her set of approximately 50 teeth, and looking for all the world like it was 1991 in her mirror every day. Tammy's pretty, but she wears too much makeup and has a body that's thin and flat in every way except for her enormous chest, which defies gravity and makes her shirt look like it's holding on for dear life. She rolls her delivery uniform up to maximize the amount of skin she can expose while on her route. Her hair is always sprayed to withstand any weather, including, but not limited to, a hailstorm, and she's the only woman I know who can empty a truck of heavy packages without chipping her long fingernails. Her appetite for men is legendary in the Adirondacks. A date with Tammy was like her job description. She delivered on time, every time, and if you were lucky, usually before dessert. I love knowing her. She makes my life interesting and easy and has never once judged me for answering the door in clothes that look like they were used in a laundry commercial. The before part, not the clean after part where everything is magically clean. Even my personal clothes look like they've been rolling on the floor of the diner, but a steady diet of online bargains keeps me just ahead of my laundry pile. That's why Tammy is at my door every other day. Well, that and the fact that I purchase exotic things that a witch might need. You'd be surprised at what I find, and sure enough, they all deliver right to my door. One night a few months ago, after a few glasses of wine, I sat down and scrawled a manifesto defending my choice to shop online whenever possible. It looked something like this. Nearest good store is 60 miles away. Pants are required. Stores don't serve wine. They don't serve pizza either. As you can see, my needs are fairly specific when it comes to purchasing clothes. For magical resources, I have my grandmother, the pristine wilderness surrounding me, and eBay. Guess what I've got? She asked, smiling again. I looked down at the small, flat package and took an involuntary step back. Is that from New Mexico? Gus looked up from his meal. He could sense my discomfort at a distance. Tammy smirked, creasing her lipstick, which may have been applied with a paint roller. It is. Want me to stick around and help you in case you're overcome with the majesty of it all? I took the package and gave her my best glare, which wasn't very good. She'd already begun checking her makeup in the hall mirror. 2 houses down from me, a single man had moved in. That was all the information I had, but it was enough for Tammy to plan a full-scale invasion of his senses with her perfume and wiles. The perfume would arrive first. She wasn't shy when it came to spritzing, and the cloud of flowery scent would be her advanced troops. Tammy took no prisoners. I had every confidence that she'd get her man. Judging by the predatory smile on her face, she did too. Wish me luck. Have fun with your gift, she mocked, clicking her tongue and giving me finger guns. On any other woman, it might look like she was trying to impress a 14-year-old boy, but on Tammy, it fit. I closed the door and went to my wine rack. Get down, Shuggy. Got a cat. Pulling a bottle of red from its nesting place and beginning the needlessly complex operation of removing a stupid cork from the stupid bottle that kept me from getting to the wine. After some grunting and a commentary from Gus, who thought my problem hilarious, the cork popped free and the wine glugged merrily out into a glass. I sipped, leaned back on the couch, and began to unfasten the meticulous wrapping encasing the flat package. My dad may as well sign his packages. He considers proper taping a virtue, and this delivery had all the hallmarks of a 20-minute packing job by none other than James McEwen, United States Forestry Service, retired. The beautiful looping script meant the label was written by my mom, Joanne, owner-operator of McEwen's Adirondack Furnishings, retired. The fact that both of them had conspired to wrap and mail the box to me was akin to stapling a packing list to it. After I tore the myriad pieces of clear tape away, I looked at my back wall and held up a thumb to judge how much room remained on the space over the wood stove in my kitchen. The wooden tongue and groove wall sported 3 small oil paintings, none of which were any good. In fact, they looked like arguing cats had taken up brushes, which was partially true. The package contained what I've come to call crap, or conflict resolution art projects. Every time my parents have a disagreement, they collaborate on a painting, make up, and then mail it to me as a token of their continued devotion to one another. Why I should be punished with the damn things is beyond me, but in the unlikely event my folks visit without plenty of warning, I keep them hung in the kitchen. Separately, my parents are decent artists. Mexico, a fact that still shocks me when I give it anything more than a cursory thought. Joanne and James are halfway born and bred, so the entire town was stunned when they selected a small town in the outskirts of Albuquerque. They learned of New Mexico from our cousin, who fled the snows of New York for the Western desert and never looked back. Cousin Stan ran a small roadside motel that miraculously survived in what I thought was the middle of nowhere. Turned out that New Mexico is the middle of nowhere, but beautifully so. They gave me the house, took some things with them, and rolled out of halfway with little more than a nap and a vague idea to head south and west. I miss them, but we Skype once a week and they send me care packages of gems collected from the myriad of dealers in their new area. I use them for spells, but they think I love jewelry. I was a late in life baby, so the retirement was looming by the time I came back from college with the understanding that I hated school, missed halfway, and wanted to be a witch just like Gran. I worked at the diner when I was in high school, so it felt natural that I should return, this time behind the grill instead of serving tables. I like the change, and for 3 years, I've built a life based on magic and making the food at the diner into something special. Don't get me wrong, it was good before, but I wanted to make it great. You might think that serving obscure Moroccan dishes or the odd heirloom French country recipe wouldn't go over well in our little town, but you'd be wrong. Thanks to the wonders of cable television and cooking shows, there are people who've never left halfway that can now discern between farm raised and native trout with a mere glance. It's one of the oddities that global culture has brought to my doorstep, and it makes my job fun. I took the painting, a blue thing that suggested a cactus riding a bicycle, and hung it on a small nail. Looking at the painting, I remarked to Gus that at least it was blue, which I liked, and small, which I liked even more. He deigned to yawn and settled on the couch for his 10th nap of the day. I sat with my glass of wine and wondered for the first time why a pair of Wendigo would think it acceptable to settle here. Not exactly the Terminator, but my reputation extends outward from town somewhat, and the really nasty things that go bump in the night tend to avoid our area altogether. It just isn't worth their time to pick a fight with someone who can give as good as she gets. We're kind of cowards like that. It must be a trait that most supernatural beasties have a deep sense of preservation. As long as they move along and don't harm anyone nearby, I give them a chance to hit the dusty trail, so to speak. The ones who show up in a second divining spell might get a warning unless if they're roasting and eating something that might be part of a missing person, then there's no need for discussion. I'll move them along to the afterlife, and that's that. We'll stop there for today. That's page 17. I think that's a good place to break. So, hello, everybody. I apologize for not looking up. I can't do two things at once. So, I got a really good question from Vivian, and it pertains to Carly has an ability to wreck cars for whatever reason, and so it pertains to her ability to wreck cars. The question is, was this based on a real person? And the answer, quite simply, is yes. My darling sister Heidi has an ability to have freakish accidents happen to her car out of the clear blue sky. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. One, the phone rang. She got a new car 25 years ago, and the phone rang, and she said, I wrecked the car on I-95. Now, I-95 is a major highway, and it makes a ton of sense that it could get wrecked there because it's like 10 lanes of traffic going bad out of hell. But Heidi had been hit by a hot dog cart, a rogue runaway hot dog cart that fell off the back of a truck and hit her car and completely smashed up her car. Another time, she borrowed her drama teacher's sports car to go get donuts and was hit by a City of Hollywood garbage truck, pushed into a curb, and exploded the tires. That's another thing that happened. However, my favorite surreal car occurrence that ever happened was she called me. She said, "Hey, I'm at a gas station." She was outside of Louisville. I used to live in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was wintertime. It was January. And she said, "My car just got crushed by a giant chunk of falling ice." And I thought, well, maybe you're just overstating the case. But no, she was at a gas station and about a 300-pound chunk of ice fell and smashed her convertible. So I had to go lay in the back of the convertible, hike my feet up and push up against it like that to try to get it to get it drivable anyway. But it was drivable. And so anyway, that is where Carly's inability to drive, or her ability to wreck cars, came from. So thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. It was an excellent question. Let's pick up next week and read a little bit more. I hope you guys are enjoying this. If not, I won't keep doing it. I'm enjoying it very much. I wrote this book at least 4 years ago, and it's kind of cool because I haven't read it out loud to myself ever. I trust that to the professionals, and this is an interesting experience. So thank you very much for being here. Post your questions underneath this video on YouTube when I've saved it. Reach out to me through social media or anything, and I'll see you here next week. Okay. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.